Scott, welcome to Learning on the Job. This is another episode. My co-host, Michaela E. Yunker, finally got that last name down. But Scott, just want to start off by asking, how are you doing, man?
We're doing great. I tell myself that every morning and at noon and then at 5 every day since March 12th.
Right.
I'm doing wonderful. Both my wife and I are fortunate enough that we are still able to be working from home. We have a wonderful 1.5-year-old.
Thank you.
After 18 months. So he's 18 months, right on the cusp. And yeah, we're doing great. And the silver lining through this whole thing is I had a trip a week probably for work. I was on the road a lot as we were expanding, rapidly in other cities and locations, and it wasn't all in Carpinteria. And so I was missing out on some really key time I didn't realize I was missing out on. And so it's been very nice to just have my son pop into the garage and move one of the many cans of facilities people's stuff back there. Try to keep him safe and not hurt himself with the hedge trimmer.
It is the unexpected silver lining of all of this is just the amount of time that we've been able to spend with people that we choose to be with, but don't have the time to be with, right? It's crazy. But obviously you work at Procore. You've been at Procore for a little over 3 years now. Crazy how time flies. Your official title is Senior Director of Real Estate and Facilities. Now, if you had to hold a gun to my head and made me say what that meant, I would be dead at this point. What is that at a tech company? What does that job function look like?
Yeah, it is. I'm so honored to be a part of this job. I think for me, when you think real estate and facilities, you can think a little bit of more like internal operations. And the way I explain it sometimes is it's our team's job is to find the building, to lease the building, to design the interior of the space that our employees are going to work in. And then we hand it over to a great team of people, right? Facilities team, don't break it, keep it running, make sure everything's met that we need to keep it safe. And then we have this awesome workplace experience team that says, all right, now you make it feel like Disneyland every day. And we do a damn good job, right? And food and beverage, I can't forget them. They're part of workplace experience team. We were doing an awesome job. And really some of the words I've said before is like, it's our job to create the least amount of friction possible for employees to do their job. And if that's to help decrease the time it takes you to commute, if that's by running more shuttles, that's by increasing parking locations, that's by just getting you in the workplace. And then once you're there is making it as easy as possible for you. Go ahead. Sorry, I can ramble for a while on this.
Oh, I was going to ask, is this a common profession at tech companies around the country that you're aware of? And what is a positive output of this role and what would be like a negative if someone wasn't doing this role correctly? Like what do those two things look like?
There's definitely, this job's common, and this job is common in that there's definitely people who run real estate portfolios and leases, and it's our, I think our second largest spend, rent is our second largest spend outside of payroll, I think. And so it's a big fiscal responsibility. And we definitely see that role. We definitely see the directors of the workplace roles. With Procore, we're actually lucky enough that it is a pretty tight funnel still. It's not real spread out. At scale, you'll see larger companies of 5,000 to 10,000 people. They'll have multiple different people heading those multiple different departments. What we see is by having a tighter funnel in fewer department heads and just a really lean team, is we're able to innovate really well. And part of the success of the workplace and part of the success of Procore and the people and the culture that was created is we've innovated along the way, and it's a very agile approach to building facility space and real estate and workspace as it is our product. We're constantly evolving, and we're constantly, again, learning from our mistakes or learning from things like, it didn't work. Let's continue to improve. So that's really where we see a lot of success of what makes us successful versus someone who's like, not so successful. If you're afraid to innovate and you're afraid to try new things and afraid to try to fail, your office space is going to be the same. And your office space isn't going to continue to get different. Every building we have, every floor in Austin, Texas, every WeWork we enter into gets a little better and a little better and a little better. And that's success for us. And if we still need to go back and we need to continue to improve. But the moment we stop innovating and the moment we stop thinking big and outside and weird and wild is the moment that we find another Scott, right?
Right.
So would you say, like, it sounds like innovating for your team is a continuous cycle, or does it happen typically when we get new office spaces, or what does that look like?
Continuous. It's very continuous, taking lessons learned from new spaces or lessons learned from new ideas in the industry and starting to apply them back at what we're doing. And we start to go back and think about P1 is a really good example in carpentry. It's where Procore started in carpentry in 2015. And they did a renovation on it and it was great in 2015. And we just went back and redid it. It's where all of our desks were and are. I think they're still there. But and so you can now you can look at that and say, wow, okay, this has really come a long way and it's starting to evolve. And that really is where, when we start looking at returning to an office, is what do we really need in these spaces to be productive and effective and efficient and engaged, taking what we've learned from working in our houses and having a little time to think and focus about that.
So before COVID, what was your strategy for the teams that you are helping run at this and operate at this time for a hyper growth company like Procore, where I've been here for 3 years and I think we doubled in size in that 3 years I've been here. So what was your team strategy before this pandemic hit and changed course for everybody?
I smile and laugh a little bit because there's a lot, but I think the easiest way to sum it up was get hiring plan, super aggressive, build space faster than build space as fast as you can.
Right.
You're right, man. It was hyper growth. And from a facility side, it was lease, build fast as you can. And we've done well. We've done really well. You look at Austin, Texas, you're right. Like I started in Austin, Texas, and it was down to around, we were like, 100 people, right? 150, 100 people building the 150. We left Austin, Texas on March 12th with 560 people. I mean, you're talking just hyper growth. And so for us, it was really saying like, okay, build the space to make sure everyone have a seat, because pre-COVID, it was employee seat. It was a 1-for-1 solution. And it was not only do that, but also innovate along the way, but be very fiscally responsible and make sure that we stay within some benchmarks, that we're not just 500 square feet per person, right? So we try to stay within some industry norms. That was really pre-COVID. So this has been a nice, real gut check to say, what do you need in your space as an employee? What do you need in your space as a company? How do we take what we've learned and start applying it? Looking in the future and looking big picture. But before, it was build as fast as possible, maintain as much as you can, because it was highly utilized. Everyone's in the office. When everyone's in the office, everything breaks. And then you think about the events and the culture that we had before, with the amount of work on, everyone was going so fast to stay on top of workplace experience. And it was really hard for us to be innovative. So it was something that we kept pushing on. And I think part of the silver lining on this is like, we really have an opportunity in front of us right now.
Could you help pull back that curtain for something I think that maybe a lot of employees may take for granted, but like what goes into that decision for a new office space? I know that you've been here long enough to, before we've added certain offices like overseas in England, Toronto, I believe. I believe you were part of the new Austin space. I mean, like, what goes into picking the location?
Yeah, like, how do you pick that?
New York City is a great example for us, and that's something we're working on right now. It's a real current opportunity for us. And some of the challenges are, you look at, okay, I've got 100 people, 110 people downtown. We got 45 people midtown. We have a pretty good hiring plan here. Where do we want to be? And in New York City, is a good example, is people in New York City, they'll lease or they'll rent an apartment given where they work. And when the moment you move that, and even if you move it a couple blocks, it's a different train, it's a different schedule, it's a different end stop. You just rerouted everything. So for New York City, for us, we started over a year ago, starting looking at, all right, if we move an office location to point A, how does that impact commutes? Mm-hmm. So, thinking about commuting, creating the least amount of friction as possible. So finding a good building that doesn't impact the commutes on the entirety. You then start thinking about, all right, we got to tie this into, fiscally disciplined. Is it within our parameters? Would it fit our 3 to 5 year headcount models? Could we have good expansion rights so that we can really make our CFO happy? I'm going to take a little bit of space and I can build into this over the years. In addition to, you look at like building amenities, right? A lot of the things you look at in a downtown urban environment is, does your building have a subway in the basement? That just cut off things. Does it have a gym? Does it have yoga studios? Does it have cafes? Like all those things that you're looking for in your office space. We then go to market and look. We started looking at 13 locations in New York City last year. We refined it down to about 3 to 4. And that's exactly what we're doing on Friday, March 4th in New York City. And then we sent everyone home on March 6th. It was wow. It was a crazy time. But it really is, I'd say, like, look, we're definitely leading with employees first and thinking of what's the best scenario that we can look at and balancing the business, the business demand and business reasons for it as well. So I don't know if that helps.
No, it does. I mean, and you made my job easier because you transitioned. So obviously, I think Procore was a little bit more aggressive than the rest of at least California, and deciding to have a lot of their employees start working from home when the risk started to get a little bit more serious. What happens to your strategy there? And you rolled out a 14-phase reopen plan as well. But so what's the strategy now? And then what's life going to look for us as Procore employees working in an office at this point?
Yeah, we set out with these key principles I talked about at ACU last week, which are employees and families and communities first, right? That's the first key principle. And that one is a really easy one to say, is like, look, your safety comes first. And the moment we start, we were in New York City, our president and I were in New York City looking at buildings with them, thinking, wait a minute, we're no longer shaking hands. This was like pre-masks, but it was different. Hand sanitizer was everywhere. We're elbow bumping, foot kicking people. And it was kind of like, wait a second, this is getting bad. And a lot of the reading I've done and things I've heard is like, look, when it's uncomfortable, when it feels like it's too early to make a decision or feels like it's too early to make that call, that's the right time. Mm-hmm. When it feels like it's the right time to make that decision, it's too late. But we grouped up with the Employee Operations Committee, which has been made up of finance and people services. We have revenue representation on there, R&D representation on there, executive level representation. There's a good group of people that have been running this and it's saying we're going to lead with safety first, and we're going to get people home. Mm-hmm. And when we say we're going to proceed with cautious optimism, is at that moment in time, we're thinking we think we can run this business as fully remote. It turns out we ended up having to, right? And so getting New York a week early was a nice little pilot. And then everyone else to follow on the 12th was saying like, okay, let's see how this goes. And to see that we can do that, and in the immediate days following, realizing, okay, the business isn't broken yet. And we're going to be okay from how do we keep, the technologies were so well done by IT that we transitioned to working from home with no VPN issues, no Zoom issues, no Slack issues that we saw as employees. Mm-hmm. Mike Hansen might say differently, but when you start thinking about, okay, you look at that, and then we start saying the third principle is compelling business reasons. Not all of us can work from home effectively and efficiently, and we've identified that, right? And that's where we start rolling out in these phases is the proceeding with cautious optimism is saying we're not going back before October 5th. But there are some compelling business reasons to say we need to get Ox back in the office because his podcasts are just not the same from home. I'm kidding. They've been great. I've watched them all. But there are folks that the internet doesn't work, right? Like I live in an area where the internet sucks. Or again, it's a space issue. Mm-hmm. I could not work in the garage in Austin, Texas because it's overheating. I'm fortunate enough to be in Carpinteria where I can literally work in my garage every day, and it's pretty mild.
Right.
So that started the phased approach. And saying when we go back in the immediate short term, which we could say short term is probably going to be from now to the end of the year, is that short term, it's not going to look the same. As we talked about at Wednesday lunch or at ACU last week, things like Wednesday lunch, that won't be happening just because we can't have that many people gathering at one time like we did before. Snacks and beverages, we had a lot of high frequency touch point things. And when you think about that, we all shared the same kombucha handle. We all shared the same cereal handle. And in long term, when you look out a year post from now, we'll be back to that in some way, shape, or form. We'll be back to that. But in the short term, we really need to minimize those risks to say the intent of getting you into an office for phase one is that it's safe place to work, has good internet, and you can get back to being productive and efficient and engaged, and you can be productive. You can be successful in the role. When you look, and it's about 20% of capacity. So it's not a lot. When you think about, 2,100 people, it's only 200 people around the company. It's a small group. And then when you look out even further, it starts to just reopen a little bit, similar to society. I really want to work hard on saying, what do you need in that office when we come back? What we know we need some flexibility. It's been great to be at home and you have personal space, you can focus, and that's driving some productivity. But the gap right now is collaboration. And we're seeing people, it's hard to, from a sales perspective, grab a couple of folks, put them around a table, and let's talk about this deal real quick. That's a lot harder now because you got a calendar you got to get into, and you got a Slack that's gone off, and I got 40 emails. It's a little harder to do that and collaborate. We really should start looking at the office to say, okay, how do I provide personal space that drives focus, but there's still collaboration and good tools so that if I'm at home, we can still have a voice in this. In a pre-COVID era, it was really hard to be on a Zoom conference call, on a TV, and you felt obligated to be in that room, or you felt it was hard to have your voice heard. And that's something that our lessons learned and forward-thinking committees are looking at, is how do we improve that in the immediate future. As we get into phase one, we're going to address these challenges.
Is there anything that employees just across America, or really across the world, as they do prepare to go back into the office? I mean, how should they be preparing mentally, or what should they be expecting?
When you go back in phase one, right, again, it's going to be that it's a safe place to work. It's got good internet. It's going to have some perks to make sure that you're taken care of. But know that it's not going to be exactly the same as what you left. And we'll have to build back to that. And that we have a plan and a path, but it's not going to be the same thing you left immediately. But we damn well will make it safe. And we're not going to put employees in harm's way. And if it turns out that we go into phase one and society around us starts breaking down and COVID cases are increasing, we're going to get you home again. But we're going to keep you safe.
And then how do you see this remote test run for all these companies really factoring into business strategies? I mean, I know, like you said, real estate is really expensive. But in terms of the cost analysis, how do you see this affecting business strategies?
It really is what you're starting to see is teams come together to say, how do we be more of a distributed company? And how, right now we should be thinking about, we want to find the best talent that we can, and we should be able to hire just about anywhere. It has its, a remote workplace experience person is going to be a little tough. Maintain the facility in Carpinteria from Iowa. We need to have a challenge.
Yeah.
As a business, you're going to have to really look and see what makes sense. But on the entirety, it really does start to track towards, we can be more of a distributed workforce. Mm-hmm. We will have different, the intent of the office will be different. It needs to be flexible, right? So as you look at that, there's a lot that goes into it. Is, okay, you hear a lot about the Facebook is like, okay, we're going to pay per region. It makes total sense. There should still be some approval processes. But again, we need to level the playing field is when you're...
No, I'm sorry, because I don't know a lot about this. So what is the pay per region?
You can't, if you work in San Francisco and you have a San Francisco based salary, but you relocate to a different city where that pay equality, this is Trevor Ross's area, where you're not going to make that same, you're going to pay per region. Right. A good way to think about it is like, I would love to, one of my favorite business trips was India. I would love to go to India and work in India. I loved the culture. I loved the people. I loved everything about it. Yeah. But the pay equality would not be the same, right? I would make Indian based, we'll pay for India.
Right.
So that's how you're looking at it, is more, and that already happens for within our organization, but it just needs to be crisper. It needs to be tighter. And that's a lot of what Facebook said, is like, you can relocate, but be prepared. And be prepared to say, we're going to make sure that we look at pay equality per region, which is I think that would be, there's a lot that goes into this. Yeah. And as we start thinking big picture is, okay, distributed is great. But how do we create, again, a quality of voices being heard across some on a Zoom platform, some are in office. And how do we make it okay? It's okay to be working via Zoom. Whereas before, I was super guilty. I always wanted to be in the office. I felt guilty when I worked at home. Right. That's been broken and that's been leveled. And now more than ever, you go back to saying, like, what's the office really need to be? And I think it really has got to be centered around not just only the employee, but we really got to focus on celebrating the client. You've got to celebrate the product, and you've got to celebrate the employee. Whereas we were trying a little bit in pre-COVID, we had some good traction with the client walls and client areas and client pictures, but there's so much more that we can do as we look forward. Let's celebrate the product. We should have touchscreen TVs and iPads and lobbies and entry areas, and where everybody could play with the product and see it. And I think that was definitely a gap on my side that I identified pre-COVID was this goes back to so focused of build space. We weren't able to innovate. And I'm extremely excited to say, let's get back in this office and think about, how do we have the Procore top 100? And if you're in the top 100, you have your hard hat on the wall. You have a hard hat wall or something like that. And then you run towards a product area. And then the employee area is not just a sea of desks anymore. The employee area is more of a collaborative space. This is, you're really looking at, how do you live with COVID now? It's okay to sit on some couches together and sit around and whiteboard and share a whiteboard pen again, right? We'll get back there.
Right.
When you can do that, how do we make sure that it's a level playing field for voices to be heard?
Love that. That's so fun. I'm a little curious. I feel like you spewed off so much knowledge for us. How did you obtain that? Like, can you walk us through kind of your past? How did you get to Procore? What does that look like to be where you are today? Is there anything kind of jobs that may have attributed to becoming this director role that you're in now?
Yeah. I think, we take a turn on the conversation path of saying this. I've not had the same job for 20 years, right? Or for 10 years. Coming out of college in 2008, 2009 is when I graduated, which is similar to kind of what we're sitting in today, where it's like, if you're coming out of college today, you're probably like, I will take any job you can give me. And that's where I was in 2008, was like, what happens? Like, gas is $5 a gallon. Right. And it was kind of like, I will take any job I can get. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity with an industrial demolition company that worked in oil refineries, chemical plants, paper mills, you name it. Some real dangerous, hazardous stuff.
But you blew up stuff?
We tried not to blow things up. It was actually the opposite. It was everything around us would blow up, and we would have to just get little pieces out, right? Or big pieces out of little areas.
Okay. And
it was one of those things. It was like, one of my favorite projects was a tetraethyl lead plant. It was used in leaded gasoline. I don't remember leaded gasoline, but before unleaded, leaded gasoline, but it in its pure state is highly flammable. So we had to wear acid suits and fresh air masks hooked up to an oxygen tank, and we had these things called pneumatic tools, which are air-powered tools, because if there was an electric spark, you'd blow up.
Oh my God.
So you and I would go in together. I'd have the tool, and you'd have the spray bottle with water cooling the blade down. It was crazy.
Oh my God, gnarly.
So that taught me a work ethic, right? On top of everything that my father taught me before that. It took me to say, look, I take any job. I started in the field, and then I worked my way up. And pretty soon they're like, wait, you graduated with a business management degree. You can run Excel. You know how to make a Gantt chart. Get in the office. And so I quickly started doing more office work, which was the project management, the project coordination, the you think about the takeoffs of how heavy were things going to weigh. I was writing safety standards and incident illness and prevention programs, which I'm applying now today. So you start to, kind of go from that. There was a great amount of experience built there. And I didn't realize at the time how valuable that would be. And like I said, kind of we were chatting about, where we grew up. I've followed my lovely wife, girlfriend at the time, around California, and she landed in Santa Barbara. So I wanted a job in Santa Barbara, and I came to work for a family in Hope Ranch, really nice area here, as a property assistant. And I was filling cars up with gas. I was taking dogs to the vets. I was helping them run their life. And it was really fun. But they took me from the Wild West industrial demolition cowboy and refined me into a little bit more of like attention to detail. I still joke, one of the pet peeves I have now is like the zippers down on the pillows on the couch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that was part of this job, was like making sure like everything's put together. And they built a lot of who I am today. But with that, I started running more of their facilities management of their estates all over the country, and started helping them with building custom homes and more construction. And it really tied in nicely to the project management that I had before and that carried along. So now I have this great extensive, construction background of demolition, and then you take it to facilities management. And I, at the time, was young and dumb, and I thought I was worth way more than I wanted. And I left, and I took this big risk again. Right. And it failed miserably. I went to a different construction company. It didn't work. It wasn't a good fit. And I realized it really quick. And before this, people were telling me, this is the worst decision you're making. Like, you should stay. Like, you have a great job. And it was like, no, I want to try this.
Yeah. Don't ever motivate me like that. Are you serious? Don't ever tell me I can't do something.
Like, what, I can't do that? Okay, I'm going to do that.
Right.
And I did it. And it didn't work. And I quickly was like, okay, we've got to recover. And so I went from this construction company that didn't work to a trampoline company that built trampoline parks all over the world. You've probably seen like Rocket Jump or Sky High or, any of those. It was a great little family, and they had a wonderful business, and they just needed project management help. And I came in and helped them with their company, and quickly got picked up by a company called Curvature that's based out of Goleta. And I got picked up by them to run their commercial real estate portfolio as a real estate project manager, no direct reports. And I started there, and then very quickly we did a couple projects, big projects at Amsterdam, India, Singapore. Really started to build my cultural side of things, of like, there's more than just the US out there, which was fascinating and a whole nother story. But quickly working with people, I got involved in the distribution side of their warehouse and supply chain management, inventory, shipping and receiving. And I ended up, by the time I left, it was almost a total team of 100 people. And I was working directly for the COO, and she's a wonderful human being and taught me a lot about business management. And how you think and how you scale and how you look at running a business. And at the time I thought I would never leave, right? The story continues. It's like, oh, this is a great job. What are you doing? And here comes this guy named Steve Zahm. And I sat down with one meeting with him and a couple meetings with two, and was like, you two are brilliant human beings. And as a real estate guy, you talk about like the real estate job. What's fun and what's cool, and they call it cool and sexy, is like, oh, I have 1 million square feet. Now I have 300 buildings. And you kind of like, that's what you flex your muscles on in this world. Yeah. And Procore didn't have that, right? But Procore had this thing called culture that I was like, wait, what is this called? And like, culture drives the business drives the culture. Like, what? I was like, okay, I'm in.
Right.
And off I went. And again, like we got here to say, I'm here to run real estate and facilities. And I had an awesome team of people around me that supported me in coming into this. And this is a different culture, and it's a different workplace. And it's something that you need a strong group around you that you can benchmark. This is the coaching program. This is having an awesome boss. This is having great peers and great people around you, that it's not, this culture is different. And you definitely need some help to keep you in the guide rails. When you can find your flow, I think here is what you can do is, from your question, I take all that past experience now, multiple different bosses, some good, some things bad. And you're able to start becoming the person that you are today with this weird background of business management to blowing shit up or not blowing yourself up, and to driving cars and filling them up with gas, to building, these extensive properties for this family. you apply all that now and it's like, okay, and now I get it. Now I'm super thankful, right? It's like I recently called my dad and was like, thanks. He's like, for what? I was like, thanks for everything. Just everything, man.
Oh, man.
It's like a dad
On
dream.
Father's Day, too. It's a few days before Father's Day.
And I did tell my mom as well. So I do say it to my mom.
So you've had all these roles, help you lead you to this point, which you said, you have an appreciation for the culture that's here versus a lot of the places that you've been at. But how else has your eclectic background impacted how you show up at your role today?
I think, I go back to sports for sure. Sports and definitely my family, and my dad would always say something, I still say it and we still joke about it today and we still say it today, is always take the opportunity. If you're given an opportunity and there's any doubt in your mind, like, I don't know if I want it or not, always take the opportunity. If you don't take it, someone else will. And that's kind of how I've looked at my entire career, is as you get into something and you start trying these new things, you learned a new skill and you're given an opportunity to say, hey, I want you to run this project for me. Or I want you to do this podcast. Or, hey, there's this crazy idea that the president of the company and I have, and we think you'd be great at it. Always say yes, right? And then apply that work ethic that you have, trust yourself and your abilities. Always take that opportunity. So if you don't take the opportunity, someone else will. I think the other one that I'm big on, and this is probably more the sports side of things, is don't tell me, show me. Right? Like we talk about a lot of things. I personally am the shower in things. I will listen. I will figure out what you're trying to do. I might not tell you a lot about it, but I'm going to put together what I would call as an MVP, like a minimal viable product. And I bring it back to you and say, is this what you're thinking about? And then we just keep iterating quickly. And all of a sudden we're from 0 to 60 and this idea is flowing. So I'm a big proponent of that too, is don't tell me, show me.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
You said always take the opportunity, which I love. I think one of the younger Ox fell victim to not feeling I was ever ready for certain opportunities or challenges, or didn't think that I was, it was a confidence thing for me. But for you, can you pinpoint a time that you had an opportunity in front of you that you just passed up on?
Oh, that I passed on?
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I'm always like, yes, 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 yes.
Let me change the question then and make it's similar but different. You said earlier, and you said it a few times throughout this, about how important taking a risk is. And failure is a part of that, and failure is fun, is something that we talked about before we started recording. But is there a time that you've failed at something and it turned to be a really great positive, or you were able to take away a lot of positive learning lessons? Because I'm a big believer in those failures are really, really huge opportunities for you to get some hyper growth like that may have took you a lot longer in life to gain. If
I didn't leave working for this awesome family, making a good salary at a young age, if I didn't do that, right, I would have never had the experience and I would have never had the experience to probably get me the job at Curvature, which ultimately the job at Curvature got me the job at Procore. And going to the construction company that turned out to not be the best thing and fit for me, like that seeing that fall flat on its face within the first month, that was the best failure, because then I had to recover, right? And of course, what's your first reaction? You go back, right, to I just went back to the family that I pissed off, right? And I left the job in 2 weeks. I'm really gonna that's not gonna fly. So one of my regrets was, you don't leave the job. And when you have a lot of responsibility, leaving in 2 weeks is pretty tough. So I failed at that because I burnt that bridge to go back. And then I went to a company that didn't work. We failed, but I had another. I found the trampoline company before I landed, before I said I'm gone. But I left. And along the way, I've had, people definitely in my ears like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy, But then to rebound and have that hard work ethic and go in with that don't tell me, show me attitude, it's you go back to your roots of your foundation of okay, what are your personal values and how do you apply those, and you just keep digging, and it's worked.
I love that. And do you use those kind of personal values as a guide for picking next jobs, or how do you kind of combine those two for yourself personally?
Hopefully Sam doesn't watch this, but no, next jobs. Okay. Yeah, it's weird. I joke with Steve a lot. It's like, you wrote the Procore values for me. The values of Procore hit so close to home, right? And I'm learning how to balance, like, I think we all are. We're always learning. But I want to be I'm extremely open, right? And openness is transparency. And when you can have a really open relationship, you get really good work done together. I think that, and ownership is like, that's the pioneer in me of the 5 voices. Is I look at that as like, yeah, like I want to be able to, you look at the promises too. I think like the Procore promises really hit home well with me. It's like mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So when I can find that fit, like that's where you get the best out of me. When we have, trust, so trust is built, we have an open relationship, we're confident in my ability to be a master, and then the autonomy is given. And when I then take that and trickle that down, and I use that with our teams, inside of my org and out, the purpose and the value that comes out of that and the work product is just extremely rewarding on my side. To see people just growing in their career path is awesome.
I think it's pretty well documented at Procore that you are a leader that people respect, and a leader that people appreciate. We have a thing where we have NPS scores where we have our employees kind of basically rate certain qualities about leaders, and you've consistently have had pretty high rankings. That on top of your passion for mentorship, helping your teammates not always necessarily grow within even the same vertical, but help them grow into other spaces within Procore. Like, why do you think there's such an appreciation, I guess, for your leadership style? That's number one. And then number two, why is mentorship such a thing that you apparently have factored into your managerial style? Yeah,
I definitely feel like when you take that flywheel of those values and you use those values in your management style, of people want to feel purpose and value, right? Like when you feel valued, you that's what you're looking for. That's the secret sauce, is like when you feel and you can see and you can measure the value that you bring to an organization every day. That's really impressive. When you're given on or not impressive, but when you feel that, that's that fire inside of you that wants you to show up and be your best self. But to get to that, we've got to give you the autonomy to do it, right? And if I'm over your shoulder all the time saying, what are you doing? And why are you doing it this way? And that's not, no. I'm a firm believer of, look, we have an end result that we need to get to. I mean, there's multiple ways to probably drive to that result. There's a way that Scott will drive and there's a way that someone else will drive. As long as we get to the end result and we stay inside of some guide rails, budget, timing, X, I'm going to let you pick your path. That's the autonomy that you can be given. And that you're going to be given the autonomy of this great deal of trust because we know that you're a master at it. We've either built you into a mastery, you're learning to be a master at it, or we feel comfortable that, yes, set off on this journey together. When you can do that for your direct reports and you can give them that just type of autonomy, all of a sudden, like this, then you look at the values, it's like, yeah, we trust each other, right? But it's scary at times because there's a great deal of autonomy that's given. And when you have a lot of direct reports, it is hard to stay in connection. And sometimes, even me still, like I do need a little validation from my boss of like, am I doing the right thing? Right? Like we all need that. So I think that for me is definitely helping drive some of those, you see those culture amp scores. I think that's helping drive it. I'm giving a lot of that and using those values. And I do think that sometimes it needs to be infectious. You need to, when you show up to meetings, like I do show up with this amount of fun and passion and fire. And that helps as well. Right. But you've created a good foundation of trust. That mastery is probably, you're creating a good foundation of trust. That's definitely helping you. What was the follow-up to it?
Mentorship also is, why has that been something that you've, that's not necessarily beneficial to you directly, right? You're potentially losing, great employees.
And we have, right? Like, to see employees grow and to get these opportunities with other companies of, hey, I got hired, I'm a manager for you today. I just got this awesome director role proposed to me, right? That's congratulations, right? Like high five, great job, right? You know, at some point in time, as we, you know, companies scale, I can't get you to the next position fast enough. And you've got to just, you know, take those opportunities. So I think the mentorship for me is creating a really safe space to say, like, look, let's focus on what are your goals and where do you want to go, and be real honest and open that, you know, okay, if those are your goals, great, I'm going to help you get there. But the reality is it might not be with us. It might be somewhere else. And be open to supporting that. I think that's probably one of the scariest conversations to probably have with your boss is like, hey, I have another job or I want to do this, but it's not with you. I want to take that out of it and create a space that's really safe for employees to say, what do you want to focus on? And then check in on that and try to continue to check in on that and work with them to develop it. But again, it's creating a safe space with trust that, you know, the only way for you to, you know, for me to help you mentor is by you trying new things, and
right.
It's got to be okay to go fail at the new thing, right? It's kind of a flywheel like we talked about already.
Can't be afraid to fail.
That's right. That's probably why so many people love you, all that mentorship. That's amazing. Excited for people.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Scott. It's been such a pleasure having you on today. Ox and I like to end with a cheesy question, is what we call it, but it's more of a reflection question.
Okay.
But if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, any point in your life, what would it be and why?
I would definitely continue to say, like, I would go back and tell myself is like, don't regret. Like, when you think you failed, like, don't regret, like, don't stop, like, throw that out the window, keep taking opportunities, keep taking opportunities, keep working hard. It does get better, right? Like that, I would go back and say that is keep taking those opportunities, keep working hard, keep remembering those internal values, like those personal values, and all that, it will get better.
I love it.
Right.
Like a new MO.
Yeah. Well, man, Scott, I feel like I'm ready to run through a brick wall now, man. I appreciate the inspiration that you've given me, and I hope other people appreciated this. But Scott, thank you all the work that you're doing for us and kind of getting our buildings up to safety and speed with everything going on. But thank you so much for this time as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate this.
Likewise. Thank you both. I really enjoyed this. And I enjoy all your podcasts. I watch them all the time.
Sweet.
And y'all should listen too. All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.